Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers. And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, Season 11, Episode 6. He's Dave Bryan. I'm Alex Kozora, SteelersDepot.com. Thanks for being here with us, Steelers Nation, for this Friday episode of the Terrible Podcast. Dave, did you send Pac-Man Jones a bunch of Joe Hayden?
No, I did not. It'd be interesting. Those things were autographed and all, too.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, somebody theorizes that maybe one of those, maybe that local, what's the name of that, TE shop or Total Entertainment, or the one that does the signings and all like that. Someone theorizes that maybe they had some certain style or something that they couldn't sell as authentic or something, that maybe they had those stockpiled and played a little joke there on them. Obviously, it would have had to been a memorabilia type, because I just don't see anybody spending that kind of money on, and to make that big of a joke there. So, but regardless, it was pretty funny, and it just goes to show you, Pac-Man Jones still is not over the Steelers after all these years.
Yeah, talk about living in your head rent-free, basically. And I don't know why Pac-Man thought that Joe Hayden was the one that sent them. And apparently they patched things up, and that was the issue. And Pac-Man nearly lit himself on fire trying to light the jerseys on fire.
The only thing that would have made that better is if they were Joey Porter jerseys.
Right.
I think that's the only thing.
Jerry Porter.
Yeah, or Jerry Porter, as Pac-Man would say. That would be the only way that would make that gag better. So obviously it was staged, I think. Why the guy didn't take those things and maybe burn a couple of them and take the rest of them and sell them and raise money for a charity or something like that. He could have helped his image, I think, a little bit maybe. It's sad to see all those things. I know there was probably several Steelers fans watching that saying, no, but anyway, quite comical to say the least.
Yeah, to say the least. Pac-Man Jones. Never going to change, I don't think. All right, Dave, let's get to some Steelers news. The big news of the day is the Steelers have activated running back Jaylen Samuels from their COVID reserve list. He spent, how many days did he spend on the COVID list? I think 12 or 13 days. And now the Steelers do not have anybody on the COVID list. All four players who were on there throughout the first couple weeks of training camp have now been activated. So very good news for this team being healthy and illness-free.
Hooray! And now we wait and see. Just make sure if they can manage to keep a lot. Look, at some point you would have to think a player or two is going to go back on this thing, or at least you would think. But I don't know. Maybe as long as none of these guys are sneaking women in like the
Seattle,
like the kid in Seattle did. And why would you be? I mean, you a rookie like that, and probably a fringe player at best, and you're gonna do something like that, try to sneak a woman in the team hotel, and obviously he was made an example out of real quick there. But I don't know. I think when you look at these numbers kind of league wide, right? Not so far so good, I think, overall.
Yeah, I think the league positive test rate is around 1.5%. And I believe the stat was from the NFL that like 70 of the 100 players who have been put on the COVID list have already been activated. So that's very good news. There's no doubt about that, though I will caution, generally you expect those numbers to be low right now at the start of the season. Once the regular season begins and you're traveling and obviously you're going against another opponent, that's where there's could be a potential risk for higher numbers, as you've kind of seen in baseball. But so far, some good, much needed, some good news on that front for the NFL.
Yeah, look, they got their 80 back out there right now, running around on the field, and obviously the helmets went on this week, and pads will follow on Monday there. So I think as a Steelers fan right now, so far so good, right?
Yeah, definitely. So far, so good. Dave, I know you've been taking a close look at some of the pictures that get posted on the team site. Again, as you said, pads come on Monday. That's when it'll kind of feel like an actual normal, quote-unquote, training camp practice again. Do you have any impressions of little things you may have learned from the first week or so of the beginnings of practice?
Yeah, not much, right?
Right.
I a couple of things have stuck out to me. One, there was a series of pictures of Chase Claypool with his hands tied with a towel, and him going through, I guess, some sort of catching drills or something along those lines with his hands tied together. So I thought that was just an interesting little look there. Chase Claypool, when you go back and look at his college tape, not a huge problem with the drops, especially down the field. Where most of his issues that I found to be drop issues with Chase Claypool was him running those underneath kind of crossing short underneath, crossing routes, that would be part of a mesh or something like that, with him just merely kind of taking his eye off the football. But obviously they wanted him to kind of focus on keeping his hands together. So that's just one of the few things that stuck out to me. Obviously been looking for pictures every day of whether or not Ben Roethlisberger has been throwing. And I think, and I'm not sure, I think they missed a day of posting photos in there one day. Maybe it was over the weekend. I can't remember for sure. But it seems like all but one day, Roethlisberger is throwing a football. So, I obviously we'll see what happens as they get more into these padded practices and all like that. But he seems to been throwing the football quite a bit. What else has stuck out to me here? I tell you something, and look, this is it's not very grounded. I mean, you're just going off of a couple of photos, but the photos set yesterday that they posted, I think there was something like 90 or 75 or something like that photos in there. There were two photos of Juju basically in a black hoodie, I think. And those were it of Juju. There was no action shots of Juju. So, once again, I don't know. You can't read a lot into that. Maybe that's the only shots that they had at Juju. But was he sidelined with some sort of soft tissue injury? That's obviously the first place that my mind went to is, is he sidelined by something here? Obviously, I don't know for sure, and that in no way, shape, or form doesn't mean that Juju didn't practice. But I guess just recently, those are a few of the things that stuck out to me.
Yeah, for me, obviously getting to see Roethlisberger throw, I think he did throw in yesterday's slate of photos that the team shared. That's really positive. Again, just being able to throw continually without pain means he's feeling good. The arm doesn't feel tired. There's no additional uncommon soreness. And I think you even found the close-up of that the scar he had from that surgery.
Yeah, gentlemen, we can rebuild him. That was you need to get on YouTube and search for the $6 million man opening. All right, and obviously that was Lee Majors was a $6 million man way back when I was growing up, and
that was a show or a movie?
Yeah, no, that was a weekly show, about an hour show, and Lee Majors was astronaut, barely alive. He has an accident, and that's kind of shown in the opening, in the intro of the show every week of how he was in an accident. They had the technology. They made a bionic man out of him. But it was, it was a weekly show and quite popular and had, I even had a $6 million man action figure, You used to have him fight my G.I. Joe all the time. Do you know what a G.I. Joe is?
I do. One of the few references I get.
All right. And if you got really creative, you could take your Evel Knievel action figure and do you know who Evel Knievel is?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Big motorcycle jumps.
All right. You can have all those guys fight together. So, but yeah, Lee Majors, the $6 million man. I put that quote up there, and that quote, along with a picture of the Roethlisberger scar, If you go back and you watch the intro to $6 Million Man, you'll get where that quote came from there. Right. But that's quite a scar he's got there, isn't it?
It is, but as long as that arm feels good, hey, that'd be the least of his and the Steelers' concerns. So good news for Ben. Anything else from camp? I think, again, it's so hard to try to glean information right now. Maybe we'll learn a little bit more once they go pads on Monday. We'll see what the Steelers website, they're going to be giving us some sort of video look into practice, but again, not expecting a whole lot. So maybe we'll begin to learn a little bit more on Monday.
They had a spinoff of $6 Million Man as well, too. It was the Bionic Woman. They had I think it probably only lasted a couple, 2 or 3, maybe season or whatnot. But the actress who did that, her name was Lindsay Wagner. And boy, she was something back there. Her and I think her name was Erin Gray from Battlestar Galactica. I had a huge childhood crush on both those two. But anyway, that's your what would pop culture TV sitcom references of the day. There's $6 Million Man and a Bionic Woman.
All right, now that our audience is down to 3 people, I want to switch.
It's tough being a dinosaur nowadays and being over 50. Like some of these references, and even one of these references that Joe Hayden had in a video he released yesterday, leaving left on red. Do you know what left on red means?
Yeah, well, you confused me in your tweet because you had it RED. It's left on red as in a text message that was unresponded to.
Well, there you go. See, I didn't know that.
What do you think it meant?
I thought, I don't know, left on, taking a left on red or something. I didn't know what it meant there. And you know me, I try to stay pretty lit and, how you doing, fellow kids? Kind of stuff there. And I had to research that a little bit on the Twitter machine. But what was your more important question there at the end?
Well, I was just bringing it back to Mike Tomlin and coaches and players who have spoken to the media this week. And Tomlin has done a really good job of speaking multiple times to the media already. And just speaking of practice and Monday, he says the intent is to have the Monday first padded practice be similar to a training camp setting. On the first day of padded practice at Latrobe, it's backs on backers. It's really physical. They ramp things up immediately. So we'll see how similar they can get that in an offseason where there's no offseason program and you're trying to ramp things up and, ease these players in, so to speak. But I did think Tomlin had some interesting comments about trying to adjust for things like transitions, like from offense, defense to special teams to changing the line of scrimmage and stuff like that. And I think that you have to have your camp work a little different this year to try to simulate some of those game things that you won't get because there is no preseason that the regular camp practice doesn't always afford. So we really, again, won't get to see a whole lot of that, but hopefully they tweak things a little bit to try to put those guys in slightly more stressful situations.
Yeah, absolutely. And he even said some of these position coaches have said too, being as how you don't have these preseason games, you have to try to create as many game-like stressful situations as you can to get a good evaluation on some of these guys. Now, obviously, as we've talked all along, some of these undrafted, heck, they're already down to, and I guess we should note who the back end of that transaction of the Jalen Samuels move was, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was fullback Spencer Nye, the undrafted free agent out of Auburn. So to your point, I don't know what the total number is, but I think about half the players signed after the draft, the UDFAs are now gone, some number like that.
Yeah, I think they have 6 of the 10 left remaining, and one of them's a punter.
Right, Waitman.
There. So it just goes to show you. And look, you're already at the possible, or you're going to be keeping obviously 53. You're going to have a 60-man roster, so that's. Oh, you're going to make me say it, aren't you? 53 and 16 is 69.
I won't be a child this time. There you go.
So you taught me something else new this week. But 69, and then you have 80 on your roster. I mean, that's not hard to pick out many of those 11 that probably aren't going to make it, right? As I did in my most recent 53-man roster there. So I have a feeling we're going to have a large success rate in the overall number of 69, I think, overall there. But back to the point there. Yeah, and you have a maximum of 14 padded practices, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
All right. And if you start, let's see, we have 31 days until the opener right now. and actually a lot, I guess a week less than that before technically week 1 practices start. So I guess 24 days of training camp, give or take, something like that, as of Monday would be left, and obviously going to be some days off in there on top of it there. So how many you got to get those, try to take advantage and get as many of those 14 padded practices in there. So I imagine it will start moving pretty briskly here, starting on Monday.
And the Steelers are notoriously known for having some of the most physical, intense practices of any team, even on a normal season. So you have to kind of walk that line between wanting to ease guys in, evaluating conditioning of players and guys who are behind the 8 ball with all the reps missed from the spring, but also realizing that if you don't tackle now, you don't tackle again until the regular season starts. There is no preseason to simulate those things. So you want to be able to walk that line. Yeah, in terms of doing things differently, Tomlin kind of alluded to it, but yeah, I would change the line of scrimmage continually. If there was a 2-yard gain on a play, I'm moving the line of scrimmage 2 yards on the next play, because usually in camp for some stuff the line of scrimmage changes at 2-minute drills and things like that, but often it's a stagnant where the ball's on the 25 for every play of this 12-play session, the run session, for example. So let's get players to adjust to lining up on the ball correctly, checking with the ref if there is a ref there, but the quote-unquote ref may be a coach in this instance to make sure he's lined up appropriately. Let's just suddenly throw in a special team session in the middle of a 11-on-11 drill just to simulate guys coming on and off the field getting adjusted, knowing where to go and all that, because those things simply won't get replicated if you don't do them now until the regular season when mistakes get magnified tenfold.
I think you hit on a good point within that, was the fact that, and I think some of these coaches have talked about this as well too, you've got to get these guys, you got to work on your substitutions,
Yep.
Between play substitutions. So yeah, you really, and I would imagine they're going to have officials out there at some point in this thing if they don't already.
Well, I'm not sure just because of COVID stuff. I don't know if they're going to bring refs in.
Yeah, you would think that they would try to take advantage of some aspect. We'll see, but regardless, I would have the whole team on the sideline type of thing anyway, and I would try to go through as much of a dress rehearsal as I possibly could with calling out personnel groupings and having a play clock running. The better you can, like you said, the better you can simulate this now and get all those snafus out of the way, the better, because it's probably going to look ugly for the most part around the league early on. And there'd be a lot of mistakes and a lot of unnecessary timeouts probably because of this. So it will be. I'm sure it will indeed look a lot different than what it normally does. And I think Mike Tomlin and look, there's got to be a balance in there somewhere of, okay, we do have a more veteran team here. How much of this live stuff do I need my my main, let's say 30 players, how much live do I need in this for those guys versus how much do they just need to get knocked around a little bit? And then you have the whole Ben Roethlisberger dynamic of coming off of the injury and him probably wanting to get a lot of work in here as well too, and you trying to balance that as well too. So it will be quite interesting to see, although we won't actually see it. I'm sure we'll hear about it to some degree, how all this transpires here over what essentially would be, I guess, the next 3 weeks starting on Monday.
And the messiest part of this is something very near and dear to my heart, is special teams, because that's where you have the big substitution. Some players stay on, some players come off, and, guys lining up in new spots, maybe for these young guys, these rookies, never done this before, haven't done this since freshman year of college or sometime early in high school. And that's where I think you could see the most amount of sloppiness, because that special teams is the toughest aspect of football to replicate in a training camp setting. It's really almost impossible to do. And again, there's no preseason to rep it and try to correct this stuff. So that's my biggest fear, because that's where the most newness for this team is on special teams. They lost a lot of guys this offseason, and that is the toughest area to try to actually rep accurately during practice.
All right, I guess we're starting with Tomlin and working backwards. What else did Tomlin have to say that caught your eye?
Well, he did, of course, confirm, and he said this months ago, but this is no new news, but just to confirm it, that Matt Fowler is starting at left guard, playing exclusively at left guard to open up training camp with Banner and Okorafor at right now. Kind of what we expected for a while now. Tomlin made those comments a few months ago earlier in the offseason, but that's every expectation that Fowler's going to be your week one left guard with either Banner or Okorafor at right tackle.
Right, and I think within that he did a great job of he was asked about continuity. And look, it's kind of a unique situation here because, yes, you do have continuity on this offensive line, right? I mean, you got nearly all but, two, I guess, technically, Ramon Foster and B.J. Finney back from the group last year. And that's in a vacuum, that's really small turnover there. And the good thing is about even some of the guys, your Derwin Grays and even a couple you go deeper down, J.C. Hassenauer and some of these other guys. Those guys, were with you quite a bit, as members of the practice squad, so they have an understanding of how things work. And yes, you have going to have a couple guys in new positions, Filer at left guard, and obviously you're going to have a new tackle. But overall, you have consistency in this thing, and it was fun to hear Tomlin talk about how that continuity does give them a little bit of an advantage here, but not too much of an advantage because you got guys playing in new spots.
Right, yeah. I mean, there's a balance there. But for Filer, again, I mean, it is a new spot, but it also isn't. I mean, he obviously started left guard last year against the Rams. He played almost exclusively left guard during training camp last season, and he's just a guy I'm comfortable moving around. But yeah, there's some newness there. You're trying to get to know Banner, Okorafor, of course, huge years for both those guys, Banner contractually and Okorafor just figuring out what you have in this guy and if he's part of your long-term plan. So overall, though, continuity with the O-line, continuity with his team certainly as a whole is pretty impressive and puts them in a good place considering all the circumstances they're dealing with.
Yeah, this is going to be a fun, and I think even David DeCastro mentioned this a couple of days ago, talking about, he's interested to see this battle between Okorafor and Banner. And once again, it's one that you would think and expect probably Okorafor to win. There should be a lot of disappointment, I think, as a fan base and organizationally, if he doesn't. No disrespect to Zach Banner. There, but I mean, obviously you got the higher draft pick in Okorafor, and if he can't win it this year, when can he win it? And you almost are resigned. Look, you're already almost resigned to going into next year's draft of probably needing a tackle. You might need two of them. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? So it will be interesting to watch that battle ultimately play out, and just knock on wood that you keep everybody healthy here. And I thought David DeCastro also put it best that overall he's not disappointed that the way that camp's kind of going to transpire in the offseason. The rest of the offseason is going to transpire without there being a preseason, because he really thinks as a whole this group really doesn't need it on the offensive line. He did, however, say that, without, and we talked about this, I think, Kevin Dotson is a guy that's obviously the one, most impacted by not having a regular offseason here.
Right. Yeah, I'm sure, 31-year-old DeCastro is thrilled with no preseason and a different kind of training camp and not having to sleep in dorms and all that. But for the young guys, obviously, it's a significant impact. Other things that Tomlin had said, and this kind of bleeds over into some of the conversation we'll have when we talk about running backs coach Eddie Faulkner, but Tomlin talking about the transformations that guys like Deontay Johnson and Benny Snell have made. Deontay Johnson adding weight, Benny Snell dropping weight, and that is pretty common for those second-year guys now that they know. We talked about this so much before, Dave. You don't know what you know until you know it, and having that information from year one to year two is big for those guys. So no surprise, but good to see Deontay Johnson get bigger, stronger, and Snell maybe get a little quicker. He'll drop a couple pounds, get some more muscle for year two.
Nobody is able to put words to these kind of descriptions like Mike Tomlin, right? I mean,
for sure.
Just off the cuff for him. I thought it was a great answer that he gave about body transformations and how we mostly notice it in the running backs and wide receivers, but that it obviously takes place at every position, and that not really specifically much more than a player knowing. You can preach, and I wrote this up yesterday, and I put in there, I think it's important to remember that these kids come out of college right into the All-Star games generally. Most of them end up in going to the combine and pro days on top of it. So a lot of their off seasons they become ahead of their rookie season, they essentially become track stars, right? And trying to basically become Olympic athletes, if you will, not so much getting in football shape. And then obviously after those, these kids got to be pretty damn worn out after after the draft takes place, and then you have to get back in and try to get, I guess you're going through your mini camps and OTAs, and you're trying to get that portion down. And on top of it, the coach is telling you, well, you better not come to camp, not in not in extreme conditioning shape. And a lot of them just don't know the process. And you could tell them till you're blue. Sometimes, the age-old saying, pigs don't know pigs stink, sometimes. So it really takes a lot of these guys going through it themselves and saying, man, this is, or seeing their teammates and what they do to get an understanding of what it takes to be an NFL athlete, a well-conditioned NFL athlete. So I thought Tomlin just did a great job of kind of explaining the obvious, right? Mm-hmm. And saying that, it just comes with basically the fact that they don't know, and now they know.
Yeah, he says, quote, "There's a lot of reasons why those bodies transform, but it has a lot to do with knowledge as opposed to speculating." So your two guys, they know what they have to do. They know how to, eat right, how to get on the right schedule for them, have a better training program, and just kind of know what their body did well, what they didn't do well from their rookie season. And so, yeah, really good sign for both those guys. And
this is nothing new with us, though, right? We've been kind of talking about this since Le'Veon Bell kind of really brought it more to the forefront several years ago. Obviously, you've been quick to point out guys like James Conner, and then last year with Jalen Samuels, and obviously we wrote and talked quite a bit about James Washington last offseason there. So I don't understand why this continues to get. I mean, it's been a huge talking point with Benny Snell this week, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, it's one worth talking about. It's not earth-shattering, brand new, never been done before news, but it's just good to see. And also, there's just a lack of other things probably to discuss that's playing a bit of a role too.
Right. But Benny looks great.
He does. Yeah, we noticed that even before they made this comment, when they were entering the facility, like that first day, and the Steelers team website captured the photo of Snell. You could already tell, like right away, that dude looked a little different than last season, which is a great sign. And
Deontay looks a lot more defined as well too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and for him, durability is certainly going to be a key because that is one concern of his. So to get a little bit bigger, a little bit stronger, similar to what AB did, who came in at a similar weight coming out of the college into the NFL, added weight continually, added muscle, was really good for him. So excited about both those second-year guys heading into 2020.
Mike Tomlin also talked a little bit about Derek White. He was asked kind of so many questions or in so many words. What is he seeing out of Watt, and how if they figure out how they think they can use him? Yeah, and he basically said, look, we're still in the process of trying to figure out how to best use his skill sets, yada yada. He is obviously a good special teams player, and that's an important aspect of what he does. Obviously, they got to see him as a fullback. On the opposing side of the field over the years as well too. So they're still trying to define what he can do. But and I wrote this up yesterday as well too. I would think that the maximum amount of offensive snaps that you could possibly see with Watt is maybe 250, something like that, and that's on the high side. I think he's kind of averaged. I don't know what I have in there as an average 150 or 180 in his first 4 seasons of offensive snaps there. I think you're looking at a guy, and when you look back at kind of what Rosie Nix, the amount of offensive snaps that he got on the field, over the last couple of years, I think you're looking at ideally somewhere in the neighborhood of maybe 150 to 180 offensive snaps for Derek Watt. In 2020. Obviously, the higher that number, probably the better, means that you're ahead in some games and could have the fullback on the field in the fourth quarter kind of putting things away, if you will.
Right. Yeah, I don't think there's a set number. It's just situational. How many short yard situations you're in? How many leads do you have at the end of games? How many goal line plays do you have? I think it just it's on an as needed basis. But for some context, I believe 2017 was Roosevelt Nick's high mark in offensive snaps at 182. So that 150 to 180 range you're putting at, I think, is pretty spot on.
All right, and they didn't use. Here's the thing. I think you go back, you look, and we've obviously talked a lot about Watt already after they signed him and all. Not that you're going to use him a lot in short yardage situations, actually touching the football, but he's got a good success rate. When it comes to that, he is a guy that in other words, he is a guy that you can surprise teams occasionally with that fullback dive, right? On a 3rd and 2 or a 4th and 1 or a 3rd and goal from the 2 or something along those lines. He is a guy that I think you can trust in those situations. Do I expect him to get a lot of carries in 2020? No, I think probably over probably be about 4. Maybe even lower than that. He is a guy, though, that you can use him out of the backfield in the passing game occasionally. Doesn't have a lot of those, but I think he's a guy that you can trust to run the wheel, right? and we all know the wheel never loses, right?
The wheel is undefeated.
The wheel is undefeated, if you will. So, look, he's going to be a core special teamer. He's going to be in there as a traditional fullback. So, I don't think Mike Tomlin's going to unearth much more than that in the coming 20-something days.
Yeah, I think he's kind of a known guy, but an important role because his team struggled so much in short yardage situations and the run game suffered, and that's for a variety of reasons, but lack of a fullback is certainly at least one of those reasons in the run game as a whole and in short yard goal-to-go type situations. So that'll continually improve those areas in a red zone offense that finished dead last in the NFL last season. All right, Dave, let's see. What else do we have? I think it's everything from Tomlin, but switching over to Eddie Faulkner now, the running backs coach, and just to kind of carry the baton, talking about Benny Snell and what Tomlin had said about him. Faulkner, you had a really good article on this, Dave, talking about the plan for Benny Snell to become a complete running back, talking about just working on his hands, his pass pro, all of those little detail things that generally young running backs have to work on.
Yeah, I thought he did a very good job of kind of talking about, look, in so many words, we like where Benny Snell is at coming out of his rookie season, but here are the things that he needs to do to become a more complete back, right? And I thought he really did a great job. I'm trying to pull up the exact quote here. Hold on a minute here.
And I will say, though, I think Snell is in a much more advanced and better place than a lot of rookies last year and second-year guys this year. So it was all, couched in a positive way, but still, of course, work that can be done.
He says, yes, Benny. He says this was a question. What did you see in the games where Benny Snell had a lot of carries? And remember, one of the things I've hit on since last season is, man, it's too bad that we didn't get to see more of Benny Snell in some of those games. Now, obviously, he missed 3 of those games with a knee injury, and he probably couldn't have picked the worst time to miss those games either, because it was right around the time I think James Conner went down, with that shoulder injury, kind of in the middle of the season as well too. But one of the things that stuck out to me is Benny Snell seemed to get stronger as games went on, sort of like he did at Kentucky, right? A real kind of grind them down kind of back there. And Eddie Faulkner said, yeah, Benny Snell football, I think he gets better going back to college. He gets better as game goes on and becomes a finisher of those games. So I would expect that to continue to grow from him. My expectation in year 2 is him to be more solid in understanding pass protection, him to be more solid in understanding route concepts. We didn't need to ask him to do that much last year because we had other guys who could play in that role, and we still do. But as far as his development, that is his next step. He is willing and very capable pass protector, but I want him to understand it like I do. I thought that was a good quote there. When he makes that next step, he is heading down the direction of becoming complete because he has good hands and he can protect, and obviously we have seen him as a runner. I think that will continue to improve with the shape he is in, and in turn he will just get better with time. So If I'm Benny Snell and I'm hearing or reading that, man, I really like that carrot being dangled out in front of me like that.
Absolutely, and I think Faulkner summed it up well. Where, I mean, I think Benny Snell has really good hands. Like, I remember watching him catch videos of his pro day at Kentucky last year, and Faulkner had said the same, that they thought he had really good hands at Kentucky. He just didn't catch the ball a lot because he was a runner, and same with Pittsburgh last year. He caught 3 passes, but one of those passes he had was against the Bengals in the end zone, where Rudolph chucked it over his head and still made like a nice jumping catch to grab it. So I think the ability is there. Hopefully you just get to see it on display. Well, hopefully you don't, because that means Connor stayed healthy. But if he's out there, hopefully you'll see it more often this year.
And one of the things we broke down coming out of last year's draft as well too. He is a willing pass protector, and I think that stuck out first and foremost, and wasn't bad overall. I didn't think. I think and is the important part of what Eddie Faulkner said there. He just needs to know these protections like Eddie knows them.
Right.
And I don't think there's I think in so many words, Eddie's saying, we know he's willing. We know he's able to. We just got to make sure he gets in. We got to trust him a little bit better when we get him out there in these certain situations. And that's part of the progression that you would expect a guy like him to make as part of everything else in the package. So, will Benny Snell end up being the Steelers feature back a year from now? I mean, it's hard to say for sure, but I mean, he is on the right path, and I think I don't know what's the ideal amount of touches that Benny will get in 2020. Obviously, you're going to probably try to get him. I would think the football touches at least around 100 to 120 touches just in a normal atmosphere. Now the rest of it obviously will depend on, I think, on the health of James Conner and everybody, and how you get McFarland included in all this. But I think we can still, in a perfect world, I think we can still learn enough about Benny Snell in 2020, right?
Yeah, that's the hope. But again, it's a discussion we've had before is, if Connor stays relatively healthy, you don't get to see a whole lot extra from Snell McFarland in terms of play time. And then Connor's gone after this year. How do you handle the running back room? But you'll still be able to see progression for sure with those guys. And obviously the odds of Connor playing all 16 games are fairly slim, unfortunately, based on his current history, his past history. So, we'll learn more about Benny Snell. And obviously, to your point in pass protection, I think you said it well about him being on the right path, but it'll be different with Ben back there, changing protections, expecting more than maybe a more stagnant offense last year where you just kind of had your assignment and it didn't change as often this year. Obviously, things can and will change on the fly.
Let's see. I guess 100 touches divided by 16 would be what?
6 and a quarter.
6. Can he get that in a perfect world?
Yeah, the number in my head, if whenever we assume Snell's the backup, is like maybe 7 touches a game. It was kind of the number that immediately jumped to mind. So, and then you can obviously add on for time missed by James Conner.
Ideally, you would probably want to bring him in, rotate him in a series, just regardless, right? With Conner, to save a little wear and tear that way, and potentially, hopefully, if you have some leads later in the game, is Snell the guy that you want to kind of potentially bring in to wear down defenses at the end there, or.
Well, if Connor's available, I'm riding with Connor whenever I can in those situations. But yeah, I mean, I'm confident in Snell. I've been high on Snell for a while. I said time and time again that the team is higher on Benny Snell than much of the fan base is, and I think some of these comments and the progression you're seeing for Snell in year 2 is kind of indicative of that.
A year from now, are we talking about Benny Snell gearing up to be the feature back? I'm leaning towards yes, just because I don't know if they're going to invest in the position super heavily, like with a second round pick or something. My next God, year's draft. If they do it again, I mean, look, I am so glad that they went about doing how they did it this year, even though I didn't want them to draft a running back. I like the type of back that they've got ultimately, and where they got that back, okay? Because, I think you were along the same lines. Do they really need a draft another back, third consecutive, year? I'm really going to go ballistic a year from now if they have to spend yet another draft pick on a running back.
Well, I think that they probably will in the likely scenario Connor's gone. I just don't know if it's going to be like a second round pick. I think it's got a good chance of one of those fourth round picks they're going to get to be a running back again, to have Snell, McFarland, and then a rookie to kind of give you good depth and a variety of talent. So I still think that puts Snell in that feature back role, because the only way he wouldn't be is if they drafted a running back really high, and I'm leaning towards that not happening.
I would hope not. They're going to have enough needs probably on the defensive side of football to an offensive line to spend picks there early.
But I do think they are going to draft a running back next year. I think they're going to keep the trend going just later.
All right, as long as it could be like a Jonathan Dwyer type in the 6th round or something, Maybe
I think it's going to be a fourth rounder again. I think they're going to do the same thing.
Okay.
On my early feeling.
Why you want to get me upset like this?
I'm sorry. Hey, maybe I'll be another McFarland. McFarland turned out, we warmed up to that idea pretty quickly, and Snell's done all right, so they're having some success there.
So where we sit now, and I agree with you, I think from where we sit now, and obviously we're going to learn a lot more about Benny Snell to some degree in 2020. But I'm with you. I think from what we know right now, which obviously isn't a lot, you would lean more to yes, a year from now, Benny Snell will be gearing up to be the feature back and be complemented by a guy like McFarland.
Yeah, that's my initial, 1,000-yard away kind of evaluation of the situation. Eddie Faulkner also talking about new running back Wendell Smallwood, and just talking about, obviously getting to know Wendell Smallwood very late in the process, but believing that he's already become a professional, that he's doing the right things, handling his business the right way, kind of made an allusion to his special teams value, which is something you've talked about, kind of in the same boat as Trey Edmonds. So that may be his path to the roster, is that a little bit of kick return value, but also blocking and covering kicks and punts.
Call me crazy, Alex. Well, I know you do anyway, but call
my mic.
I like Smallwood's chances.
Well, you had him on the roster, so
right. Yeah. I mean, I got a frog in my throat here. That Smallwood tape's got me all choked up here.
Don't get so emotionally attached.
Right. The more tape I watch on him, and I've said this a few times now, the more I understand why they signed him. So, and I think, and I put this on a poll on Twitter last night, and I'm getting the responses I thought I was going to get. A lot of people are leaning toward Jalen Samuels potentially being that fourth and final back because of familiarity reasons. But I think if you look top to bottom, wow, I'm all choked up here.
You want to get a drink of water, and I can read the poll off or something?
Yeah, do that.
Yeah, because you had a poll basically saying, like, who's going to be the number 4 running back this year? Jalen Samuels, Trey Edmonds, Kareth White Jr., or Wendell Smallwood. Over 2,200 votes have come in. Samuels, as you kind of alluded to, expectedly, and this is how I voted, by the way, Jalen Samuels getting the majority vote at 52.3% of people think he'll be the number 4 running back, the last running back kept on the roster. Wendell Smallwood in second place at 22.5%. Kareth White third place at 20%, and Trey Edmonds bringing up the rear at just 5%. So Samuels, over half the people who voted, myself included, believe that he's going to be the number 4 running back, although I think it's a close battle, and you make a compelling case for really Samuels, White, or as you've done, even Wendell Smallwood.
I think let me try this again here. Wendell Smallwood, I think, of those 4, I think he is the most well-rounded in all areas, and that includes special teams. I think, special teams to special teams, I don't think there's any question Smallwood is the better asset. Would you agree from what little you probably know about Smallwood?
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, obviously, I think White can be a kick returner, and Samuels has played in different areas on special teams. He's done kick return team, not as a kick returner, but as an up man. He's on the pump block team, but he's just not been very effective there. So I think Smallwood is the most well-rounded and probably just the most competent on special teams.
Now, probably Samuels would give you that little extra more in the passing game. Okay, just from it's what he did in college. It's what he's done quite a bit with the Steelers already. As a pure runner, who do you like better between the two?
Between Samuels and Smallwood,
right?
Smallwood.
I do too. And from a pass protection standpoint, who do you like better, Smallwood or Samuels?
Probably neither. No, Smallwood. I think you said Smallwood's pass pro is actually pretty good.
It is pretty good. It
Samuels
surprised me. So I've got Smallwood 3-1. You know, there. So I think he's going to be tough. I think he's going to be a tough out. I'm not going to sit here and guarantee Smallwood makes it. But look, I get all the love for Kareth White, but in a vacuum, really, what does Kareth White give you? He's not going to be that pass protection guy. Right?
No.
At least we don't think so.
No, he's a bursty runner and kick returner.
Right. He's not going to give you anything on special teams outside of being a kick returner. Smallwood can. Not that he'd probably be your number one choice. Smallwood can do that. I just think top to bottom, and Edmonds. Edmonds is just basically a special teams body. I mean, he's just. That's all he is. We would agree that he's probably got the least chance of the four.
Absolutely.
All right. So once again, it'd be interesting to watch this thing play out. And I don't think Samuels did, even though I don't think Samuels missed a lot. And I think Tomlin and Eddie Faulkner have said as much. I still don't think he did himself any favors through no fault of his own, or maybe it was fault of his own, of starting off here on the COVID list. Now, has that hurt him in the grand scheme? I think Eddie said it best. Look, he really didn't miss anything as long as he's out here when the pads go on and it can hit the ground running. It was the exact words that he used, then he should be fine there. But I don't think it's a slam dunk. That number 4 spot is Jalen Samuels.
I agree. No, I don't think it's a slam dunk. I'm giving, like I said, I've said Samuels is kind of inside looking out, and the other guys are outside looking in. But if there was a guy, and you had mentioned this, and I've even seen some other Cowboys fans have been talking about this. If there was a guy you could trade potentially, not that Samuels is going to garner a whole lot of conditional 6th, 7th round pick, but that's the guy. So you got a lot of running back depth, a lot of guys there. You can't keep everybody. If you could flip Samuels for I know you mentioned the Marcus May deal, we talked about that, but even just flat out conditional 6th or 7th round pick, I'd entertain the idea.
I would as well too, and
I'd probably do it actually. I'd just be flat out. I'd probably do that deal.
Right. It wouldn't take me from what I know right now about Smallwood, and not even moving forward from this point right now. And especially if we could work this thing like I mentioned, and really it's the only way I could see that you could get some sort of a package together that would be generous enough that would entice a team like the Jets to trade you Marcus May. I would do it tomorrow. I'd send Samuels and a 6th or a 7th to the Jets for a guy like Marcus May. Right. I think that would be beneficial for both sides, obviously. Now, to predict trades, I mean, it's foolish to even try. And people get on me. Well, why don't you do this more? Because it's not what we do. It's so incredibly impossible to do. Is why we don't do it. And when I do it, people say, "Oh no, that's not going to happen." So you kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't. When you get to this kind of stuff, right? But I mean, if there was one guy that you could foresee the Steelers dealing away for whatever here in the coming weeks, to me, that one player would be Jalen Samuels.
Yeah, just because, I mean, there is at least some sort of asset as a receiver. A lot of teams looking for that type of back, someone that can be split out of the formation, line up like a receiver, kind of wear a couple different hats in that regard. So that may give him a tiny bit of value. And if you can get a draft pick for next year, then all the better. So just an idea. If they want to, keep Smallwood, and they could maybe deal Samuels for something at the roster cutdowns.
Maybe you deal Smallwood. The problem is, though, you've got no – I mean, he's obviously nobody's going to have preseason tape to show or whatnot, but you would think that as long as Smallwood stayed unemployed, which I found kind of a bit surprising the deeper I got into his tape. I mean, there's obviously reasons that he was unemployed, so I just haven't gotten deep enough to maybe find some of those things. To me, the biggest, the more known commodity I think right now would be a guy like at least Samuels, especially when it comes to the passing game and stuff like that.
Right. Yeah, I don't think the other guys would have any sort of trade value, but I think Samuels could have a tiny bit. So we'll see what happens.
And plus, Samuel still has 2 years left on his contract too, so that makes him
right.
a little bit more enticing than, say, a 1-year rental like a Smallwood.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. That's a really good point. So we'll see. It's a good battle, though. It's good depth. I mean, that's for sure. So I'm pretty happy with the depth at running back for this team.
All right. So we get full credit if the team trades Samuels, right?
Yeah, we get a finder's fee from Mike Tomlin, I think, on that one. Anything else from Faulkner? Just talking about trying to find guys who can help in the running back room that have missed a bunch of reps. That's a challenge for all these guys. It's still a pretty young running back room, so these guys have to deal with the adverse circumstances of missing the spring, but still having to produce like they had a spring.
I thought he did a good job saying we got a lot of different flavors in there, which they do.
Which hasn't always been the case because, like, even 2 years ago, it was just a bunch of big power backs.
All right. Anything else that Eddie had to say? I mean, obviously, and James. I don't think James Conner added to, but James has learned how to not disclose that much, and good for him. Look, I tell you, if there's a guy possessed right now, focused, the guy that you want to talk about having one of those Willie Colon big ass chips on his shoulder, it's James Conner, and I mean, it sets up that if he can stay healthy, this guy could put up 1,500 total yards from scrimmage in a heartbeat. I don't think he could put up 500 or 1,500. I mean, it could be that feast or famine with a guy like him this year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we know the talent is not the issue when it comes to James Conner. It is, of course, just health. But I agree, big chip on his shoulder. Dave, you wanted to talk about the cap and Steelers cap situation. Had some questions on Twitter, I think, about that. So you can take it away.
Here's the interesting thing as we sit here right now. And that is the fact, and now the NFLPA is still a couple of moves behind real time. Why that is, I don't know. They've had enough time to kind of get caught up here. But approximately, the Steelers are $4 million under the cap right now. Okay, and you have to remember they still have to sign a 52nd and 53rd player, right? So even at a minimum, you're talking, let's say, let's go ahead and say $1.3 million. You've got a full practice squad that's going to, a 16-man practice squad that's going to eat up, let's say, a little over $2.2 million in available cap space. So help me out with the math here. 1.3 plus 2.2 equals.
Plus 2.2 is equaling to, what is that, 3.5.
All right, you passed.
Right.
3.5, and if you have $4 million in available cap space, $4 million minus $3.5 million is
$500,000.
Okay, so that's really kind of the effective cap space that you're dealing with here. And at a minimum, you would think the Steelers are going to want to, at a minimum, go into this season with $5 million in available cap space, right?
Is that what they normally do? I don't know what their average number is.
Around it, my wife's mocking me, counting her fingers. You want to come talk about the cap? You probably could, couldn't you? No, she says. She closes the door, too, because it gets so loud. Do I get loud?
I'm not answering that.
Okay.
I don't know if that was directed at me.
It was. Okay. She already closed the door. She's gone. But, let's even say $4 million in available. They're going to have to. This stuff just don't magically appear. So there's a couple of ways. I'm be writing about this later today. There's a couple of ways you can obviously clear more cap space. And first and foremost, there's not many guys on this roster in the next 28 days or whatever it is, whenever cut down day is, that's going to help you clear cap space. I think really the most notable potential likeliest kind of last minute cap casualty guy would be maybe a Daniel McCullers or a Jordan Berry. But even those guys, it feels like we're going to see those four guys ride in on the horses or whatnot, however that works, in the end of days before.
Is that what you were talking about? Gotcha.
But before, what do they call that? The something of the apocalypse, the McCullers of the apocalypse, or something like that. It just has the feel that it would be cataclysmic for either McCullers or a guy like Barry to get cut. And really, in the grand scheme of things, you don't really save that much once roster displacement takes place anyway with either one of those guys. You could probably make you got a guy like Chris Wormley, but I mean, you're not going to trade for a guy then turn around and cut him, right? No. You wouldn't think to clear up the $2 million there. So really, you don't have much option here other than to maybe, and I'm convinced it's going to happen. They're going to restructure probably either David DeCastro or Stephon Tuitt within the next 3 or 4 weeks here. They've gone to the Tuitt well quite a bit, I think, back-to-back times in the last couple of years with a restructure. And with his kind of injury history there, I'm not so sure that you want to go that route maybe a third consecutive year there. So that would leave a guy like David DeCastro would make the most sense right now and really is the only one left that you go after to kind of free up a little bit more than $3 million there. And especially if you have eyes on extending DeCastro's contract a year from now. So that's one way to get you some an additional $3 million there. The other way, and as we've been talking for quite a while now, pay the Cam.
Yeah, no, I still think it's going to happen. I know we've gotten a lot of questions about this, a lot of concern, maybe more angst, I guess I should say, about will a Heyward deal get done? It's mid-August, haven't heard anything. Just for some context and some reference to hopefully soothe and ease some of those concerns, some recent history, or at least over the last decade, of Steelers getting deals done late in the preseason or in the summer. David DeCastro's extension was done September 8th. Joe Hayden had an extension done September 1st. Stephon Tuitt was like September 3rd or something. Troy back in 2011 was September 10th it was. So the Steelers are very good about getting these done before the season, but right before the season. So you still have like about a month to go for a Heyward deal to get done, and I still have every expectation it's going to happen.
Don't be biting those nails right now is what you're saying.
Right, yeah. The Steelers, there's still time. And as Andrew Brandt would say, deadlines for action, and I expect a deal to happen, but not to happen until much closer to the start of the regular season.
And I think in traditional way, the Steelers like to do deals, and the way I even still imagine them potentially doing a deal with an extension with Cameron Heyward, you're probably still, if you do it smart and you got eyes on next off season or next March and being able to restructure, turn a roster bonus into a signing bonus to free up a little bit of cap space that way. I don't think you're going to save a lot of cap space this year. Maybe $2 to $3 million an extension would provide $2 to $3 million in cap relief that way, and that still might not be enough. So it would make sense to I think it's good. I think it has a potential to be an either, an or a both. And the either being, I'm still confident in a Cameron Heyward extension. And if not, it's definitely going to be a restructure of a guy like DeCastro or Tuitt. And it quite very well could end up being both here in the next 4 weeks.
Right. I mean, I guess based on your math, if a Heyward deal frees up, let's just say $3 million or even $2.5 million, and you do the DeCastro restructure, frees up an extra whatever the number is, that probably gets you
over $3 million, get you to $6 million.
Yeah, so that gets you to where you need to be for the start of the season.
And the thing is you can, whatever you don't use, you can carry over. So you'd rather have too much now than not enough. For God forbid you need to make an in season. And look, you're probably going to have to plan a little bit smarter with the COVID stuff and all, right? I mean,
right.
You better have enough surplus cap space for something cataclysmic, in nature here. So If I were to place my bets right now, I would say that you not only will you see a Cam Heyward extension, but you will also see a DeCastro restructure.
Yeah, I'm with you. I like the odds of that. I definitely like the odds of the Heyward deal getting done. So just, again, I know some people are freaking out. I would not. And DeCastro, I think, is logical, too, to get that done.
Right. So we'll.
And you were saying extension next year for DeCastro?
Yeah, I think you would go about thinking that maybe this time next year, you're going to go ahead and sign DeCastro to an extension to obviously help in several areas. You want to lock him up for his final contract, and also in the process, going to need to save a little bit of cap dollars on top of it.
All right, there you go. So good information there, and just always remember that the cap is a lie, as the Chiefs have shown by somehow getting deals done with every star player on their roster.
Yeah, and look, I mean, could it end up making the Steelers do a deal a little bit differently with Cam than they normally would this offseason? Yeah, I think there's a possibility of that.
What would be the biggest difference compared to what they've normally done?
I think maybe fully guaranteeing something in like the second year or something like that to offset maybe a bigger first year, a bigger take this year that would in turn help save maybe more than $2 or $3 million in cap space this year.
Okay.
But that would be the only way I think, because or that would be the only need, because you're probably going to have a roster. You're probably going to have a pretty decent sized 2020 roster bonus in there for Cam anyway, to give you the ability to turn it into a signing bonus as part of a restructure to help free up cap space that way. So I think the only way that would be a little bit different potentially this year with the deal with Cam would once again to be maybe fully guaranteed 2021 money that would prevent a little bit larger signing bonus this year, just to help you with a little bit with the cap this year. But I'm not fully convinced they go that route.
And just to be direct about it, you're still as confident as before of a Heyward deal getting done.
Man, I put a GIF up on the Twitter machine yesterday. If you don't get an extension done with Cameron Heyward within the next month here, done, the defensive line room come March could have Stephon Tuitt and Isaiah Buggs standing around like Will Smith saying, "Where's everybody?"
And Dan McCullers, even though.
Well, he's not under contract.
I know, but he's never going away. Okay. He's outliving us all, Dave.
All right. Well, I mean, initially, at least in March,
I got you.
Those two, and I don't think that ideally you want to be in a position in March where Stephon Tuitt and Isaiah Buggs are the two guys standing in your defensive line room holding hands together.
Mm-hmm. Right.
I'm having a hard time fathoming them. Once again, it's not impossible, as I like to say, but I'm having a hard time of fathoming that.
It's just hard for me to envision Kim Heyward playing in a uniform that's not the Steelers. Like, I just can't even get that picture in my head.
Right now, obviously, and once again, there's nothing that says that you can't re-sign, that you don't get a deal with them done now, that you get into early next offseason. But the other thing that I can't fathom is getting even if you don't get Heyward extended this offseason, I don't think there's any way that you avoid the franchise tag with him first and foremost. Now, ultimately, you would think that would lead to an extension, but if I'm Cameron Heyward, I force the tag upon them as a business decision. Because look, I think there's no reason to think Cam wants to play anywhere else other than Pittsburgh, right? But business is business. And if the team's going to conduct business that way with you this offseason, you need to conduct business with them back next offseason by forcing the tag on them.
Sure. I mean, that's just the way it goes. And then just the odds of them doing an extended or a long-term deal, in March for a superstar like that, I imagine that's not too common in Pittsburgh.
No, it's not. I mean, not for a big not for a market value deal. Now, obviously,
Right.
we've seen the Fosters and
right. That's why I said superstar, big guy, big money.
Right. Yeah, it's just, I mean, you don't have any other than guys not named Roethlisberger. That kind of stuff just doesn't happen.
Right, but the Steelers are just good about getting those guys locked up ahead of time, and that's why you don't see it too often, even becoming an issue. So, still think it's going to happen though. It's the bottom line here, and I think it won't happen until early September, to be honest with you. So, you still have some time to kind of wait, and I would not freak out about it for quite some time.
Right, and we realized his agent, and Cam, there was that Fowler story a couple weeks ago. That's just par for the course. That's just That's just
agent doing his job.
Yeah, agent doing his job.
Fan the flames a little bit. That's all it was. All right, Dave. Anything else cap-wise or anything else you wanted to talk about that we did not touch on today?
Do we? I'm trying to remember if we hit everything of people speaking this past week. Right?
Do we have any media today? Do we know?
No, I don't believe so. No.
Okay. And are they doing that next week still with padded practice, or are we kind of done with the media circuit?
I know we're supposed to have the Tomlin after practice sessions, I think, and more live instead of waiting, I think, for those to happen. I would assume, and that's dangerous right now, that sometime during the day that players will have couple players will have Zoom sessions with the media. Look, I don't know what I think that I know what we're going to see next week, but even so, I don't think it's going to be desirable.
Yeah, I just wasn't sure if the team had a schedule for any media stuff, and in terms of video content, very little, I'm sure, very little useful information, and I don't know what we're going to get from local media reports. And the NFL has put some tighter restrictions on, and just in general, we not learn a lot. So I'll be bummed out next week, though, because that's really when it's going to feel like me missing training camp.
Right. Did you see what I think Mary Kay put on something about what where did she write? Something
for the
about
Cleveland Plains.
Yeah,
the Browns are doing it big. I think they're having a great access to training
live.
Yeah.
Wasn't it her? Correct me if I'm wrong. Wasn't it her that wrote that? I'm trying to find the tweet.
Well, I remember the Browns had announced it a couple weeks ago. I remember writing about it a little bit in an article for the site. I don't know exactly what they're doing, but yeah, the Browns are doing like live training camp coverage, like where they're just going to show practice, I guess.
Man, that's.
Which will never happen in Pittsburgh.
I know. I can't find the initial quote there, but anyway, yeah. To hear that promoted, Browns fans are going to have it a lot better than the Steelers fans, I think. Look, we don't expect to see the 11-on-11 stuff, right? But it sure would be nice to see the drill stuff.
I don't even think you're going to see one-on-ones. I think you'll see warm-ups, individual work, and that's it.
Yeah, all right.
So maybe we'll get an idea of who's practicing.
And you know what's going to happen? Two of whatever media members out there will say so and so made a nice catch, and everybody be running to their 53-man rosters to put give me an obscure name
Saeed Blackmore.
There you go. Although he's having a hell of a camp. Put him on the 53. The overreaction. It's going to be like we're taking a step back to 7 years ago, I guess, to kind of way things were.
Yeah, we'll get through it though, and we'll just see what happens. What are you going to do?
Yeah, what are you going to do?
All right, Dave. Anything else you want to talk about, or we can jump to some reader emails and close?
I guess we should jump to some reader emails here. So let's see here. Let's say this one's from Brett Nile. Hey, Devin, I just got to say I really missed. Okay, this is one he said to come back to. First question is what are the salary cap implications for teams where players opt out for the 2020 season, specifically a team like New England who had several big money players opt out? Does that mean that those players' 2020 salary minus the stipend comes off the books? If it does, that creates more room under the cap for that team in 2020. That would be correct. Assuming they don't spend it somewhere else, will that mean that the excess will roll over into the 2021 season? Yes, that would be correct. So could a team like New England have a lot more money to spend next offseason relative to the rest of the league? As a result, could they take advantage of a depressed market to get a couple of steals? I guess, I mean, as you have all this written so far, Brett, I would say yes, 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 yes. Also, Dave always talks about pairing cash and cap in these discussions. My second question is, how does cash portion of this work out in the opt-outs? Do teams still have to spend that 90% threshold even with the opt-outs, or is there an exception? My understanding, look, that it's not a year-by-year threshold. I think they went more to, I'll have to read up. It used to be a 4-year 89% threshold. I don't know if they've whittled that down to maybe 2 now, to, in other words, keep teams from having like that 4th year, oh, we're this far behind and we got to dump this much cash into it. I think they want a more even spread out of cash. I'm not 100% sure on that. But to my knowledge is, look, if you didn't spend the cash via salary this year, you don't get credit for it, you know. And really, I think long and short of it, look, I mean, if a guy, and here's the other thing I think someone else had asked, if a player gets a stipend, and it obviously comes out of his salary, does he have to pay that back if he doesn't make the roster, let's say next year? And to hear Joe Corey and others talk, the answer would be no. I think the team is just out whatever the stipend amount is there. So, teams do get kind of the rebate if a player was set to count, you know, whatever against the cap this year, and you only paid him $150,000 stipend because he opted out. Only the $150,000 goes up against your cap this year. So, yeah, technically you could see, I guess, a team like the Patriots, I don't know, game the system, I guess, if you will, and roll over all that excess cap money, and then maybe take advantage of a depressed free agent market next year. Yeah, the answer is yes to all that, I think, Brett.
Yeah, it's a wild year. I mean, contingencies and plans and circumstances that we couldn't even really fathom or think about, obviously, you know, more than 5 months ago, and now it's a reality. So it's a brave new world. It's going to be a wild 12 months in the sports world trying to figure all this stuff out.
All right, this one from Thomas. He writes in, "Hi guys, hope all is well in Steelers Depot land. Firstly, for a bit of fun, who do you think will be the 7 AFC playoff teams?" All right, you want to take a stab at that first?
Not my wheelhouse, unfortunately. Baltimore, Kansas City, Tennessee, Pittsburgh. Who am I missing? I'm missing the AFC South team. I don't even know who I like the most. So I'll go with the Colts. That's 5. Oakland could be better this year. I don't know. I don't even know who the last 2 would end up being.
I will go out of the AFC North. I will go obviously Baltimore and the Steelers. I think that's I like the kind of the safeness of that. Obviously, I think Kansas City will be part of this, so that's a 3rd team. Oh Lord. I
guess the other 2 I would add, I think I had AFC East team, was the Patriots and the Bills. I think it gets me to 7.
It's hard to imagine the Patriots not finding a way in this thing, right? Patriots and the Bills. I would agree with that. Tennessee, I think comes out of the South in my shorter team. I got 2, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, I am short a team here. I don't think it's going to be the Chargers.
Texans?
Nah, I think that's going to end up. I think it's all going to blow up in Bill O'Brien's face this year. I really, really do. Obviously, I don't think it's probably going to be the Jaguars. How about the Colts?
Okay.
As a surprise team in there, to be a little bit different than your right. I think the only thing we differed there was you had the Raiders, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have the Raiders.
All right, I'll take the Colts in there. So that's our kind of early kind of shot at that there. He goes on to write, secondly, would it be in Pittsburgh's best interest to split reps with Snell and Connor? With how tight the cap will be next year, do we 100% need to know what we have in Benny Snell football? Regards from Bonnie Scotland guys, Thomas Lindsay. Look, you play to win. Whatever gives you the best chance with that running back mix to give you the best chance to win this year, that's what you do. I think you worry about next year.
Yeah, what Dave said, and obviously Snell will still have opportunity to see the field even without splitting the reps evenly. And again, the odds of Connor actually staying healthy for all 16 games are pretty slim. So you'll likely get a long look at Snell at some point during the season, regardless.
Chuck Griffith has a comment on the runner who had the question for Dr. Mel on the Tuesday podcast. He says, Rice, rest, ice, compression, elevation. All right. So
thanks for chiming in.
There we are. We're giving we're giving the medical part of the podcast here. I lost my spot here of what. Got to get back in the email. I accidentally closed that out. Let's see here. All right.
Anything else, or is that?
Yeah, no. I got a few more here.
Okay.
George writes in, hi guys, I've been listening to your ongoing discussion regarding the resigning of Cam Heyward and thought I might have detected a degree of trepidation in your previously expressed confidence in his resigning before the start of the season. Don't get me wrong, I want to see Cam resign, but I am not sure I see the logic behind the business decision to do so. Presumably the logic to resign him now is not a cap reduction issue and rather based on the idea that he will be cheaper to resign now than in the spring. An important part of this perceived cheaper price is that it has to outweigh any fear of injury. Tomlin may not live in his fear, but when it comes to contracts, Colbert has to. I assume this is the rationale behind Colbert's mantra, not making a business decision until you have to. So given all this, in a normal season, you resign Heyward because the injury risk is worth the fear of letting him hit the open market. However, this is not a normal season. With the almost certainty of the salary cap is going down for next year, is it wise to assume that a 31-year-old defensive end value will increase next year? Let me be clear. It is not my money, so I'd be happy to hand it over to Mr. Heyward. What I'm questioning is the logic behind doing it. To me, the logic of our current situation is that given you have Big Ben, you have to go you go all in this year and hope for the best. Then in the free agency free-for-all of next season, you build a team around Big Ben going forward and hope that the team has many pieces from this current team as is affordable. Boy, there's a lot to chew on there. What would you like to start?
Yeah, I would just say to the two main points, the first one being that they're getting Heyward done not to clear up cap space. That's not the main reason why you're getting it done, but that is a reason to get it done, to help create some space, as we talked about earlier in the show. So I think that's something why you want to do it now. And I don't think you're doing it now to try to save money next year. I don't think the market value is going to change significantly from this year to next year. You just get it done now to ensure that he's locked up and you're not worried about having to do the things Dave talked about, placing the tag on him, potentially losing him in the midst of all the other free agents you're going to have to deal with. So I think the premise of the question, at least my opinion of it, is different than what he's asking.
Yeah, and look, I mean, if you want to talk about market value, the market value is, the tag value is still likely to be up there, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you're back to dealing with, well, all right, if we have to place the tag on him, at least to start with here, how do we afford that tag amount in February, versus having to, being able to get to March and redoing his contract to make room because we have it built in because of a roster bonus. There are several reasons why you do it now based not only this year, because, hey, I don't think you want him going into this year thinking, man, what does my future hold?
Right.
I don't want him worrying about that. One of the reasons there. So, that's first and foremost in my opinion, right?
That part of it, yeah, but because I think what was the first part he said about you're not doing a deal now to free up cap space is what he was saying, and that's one of the reasons why you're doing it now.
Well, yeah, I mean, obviously, and look, could they do a deal where they could technically do a deal, an extension this year with him, where his cap number doesn't even move. Mm-hmm. All right, to kind of better set yourself up maybe for 2021. there. Or you can do something that frees up a couple of million this year, couple that with a David DeCastro restructure, and boom, you're right where you need to be cap-wise. Anyway, there's several different ways to eat the Cam Heyward contract extension elephant, if you will, there. So he says he has detected a degree of trepidation. I'm not understanding maybe what he's getting at there.
My
Our confidence
reaction,
level?
It was talking about us being confident that the deal was going to get done. And I obviously with the agent comments, get you thinking about it a little bit more. It kind of supposed to put a little seed of doubt in your mind. But I think as we talked about earlier on the show, I think we're both pretty confident it's going to happen. It just won't happen until September because that's generally when these things actually happen in Pittsburgh.
And why has it not happened now? And I think George puts look, you don't have to do it right now. And he has the quote in there, not making a decision until you have to. I think, didn't we talk about this on the live stream or on the podcast the other day? Why not just on the safe side make sure DeCastro and Heyward, because of not so much uncertainty right now with the 2021 cap and potentially, obviously, a restructure would add more money to DeCastro's 2021 cap number. Obviously, an extension for Cam Heyward is creating a 2021 cap charge. Why wouldn't you make sure they make it through all these practices healthy, first and foremost, right?
Right.
There's no reason to have these two, in my opinion, sitting in the room right now signing a restructure or an extension, and there's no reason to right now when you don't have to. Make sure they get through these next several weeks unscathed without serious injury because of the impact both of these deals will have on a 2021 cap. Does that make sense?
It does, yeah. It's just the order of operation, just other things to attend to right now, especially given the COVID landscape. They could even be talking about the deal right now to an extent, but it'll take a little bit of time to at least hammer out the details and get that deal actually agreed upon. So it's not going to happen in a day. It's going to be a continue, over maybe a week or so. And again, these things just don't happen until the deadline occurs. Like I said earlier, deadline spur action.
All right, so someone else had written me and said, "What about Dave? You were confident a couple of years ago that Lawrence Timmons was kind of in a similar situation, sort of, and I was pretty confident that an extension would get done prior. And this was more so, I think, leading up. In other words, I didn't think they were." It was further than a year out or less than a year out. I think it was going into the offseason. I thought maybe they would get Timmons extended, or maybe it was going into that season. It's been so long ago. But yeah, long story short, I didn't think they were going to let Timmons hit free agency the year that they did. Now, the counter argument to that versus a situation with Heyward is Timmons was not at the peak of his game at that time, right?
What year was this?
This was just 4 years ago, right?
Okay.
When Timmons ended up signing with the Dolphins.
All right, so 2016, basically 2017.
All right. At that time, Timmons was not on top. Timmons was not considered, top. He was not on top of his game there. He was a little bit older too, I think. But regardless, you got a guy in Heyward that is still very much on top of his game in his prime. I think Timmons was more past prime at that time. So a little bit difference, I think, in players of where they are at in their prime of their careers. Mm-hmm. Makes a little bit difference in this thing. Now, was I confident? I forget the timeline of when my confidence level was in there. If it was more coming out of the previous season, or if it was heading into the Timmons about to be in the final year. I can't remember that. But, yeah, I was pretty confident at that time that Timmons would have gotten done and that he would not have left in free agency. He obviously did. I'm even more, I guess, you could say I'm even more confident in Heyward getting a deal done now than I was in Timmons getting a deal, remaining a Steeler back then. Now, does this mean anything in the grand scheme of things? No. I mean, obviously, we could get to a point 4 weeks from now where Heyward does not get a deal. But I don't think at any time have I wavered kind of in my, belief that Heyward won't get extended, right?
No, I don't think you have. And I think our expectation is that it's still going to happen. Just got to be patient with it.
All right. Let's see here. Moving on from George. TJ, okay, this one's from Kyle Benson. Hey, David Knox. Been big fan of the show. Really appreciate all the work you and your team do to provide the content for all the Steelers fans. Thank you for that, Kyle. My question today pertains to TJ Watt's upcoming contract extension. I know he isn't likely to be extended until next offseason, but I was wondering, with all the uncertainty of the salary cap implications for 2021, what will or could that mean for his extension? Will it happen in 2021, or could they have to wait the following season in 2022 to try to get a deal done? Really hope they can make something happen because he is definitely the future of his defense and a budding superstar in the league. Thank you for taking the time to answer the question. I hope you and your families are staying safe. Same to you, Kyle. We appreciate that. Here is the thing. Let's assume Watt has another good season. Let's just leave it at that. A good season. Do you think TJ Watt's going to have any want to play in 2021 for $10 million?
No, he's going to want the money truck backed up to the Watt house.
Would you blame him if he had problems playing for $10 million? Even though it's the Steelers' right, and picking up that fifth-year option and all like that. It's their right to say, sorry, dude, you just got to – the contract's a contract here. I think that's the starting point there. I don't want a upset TJ Watt.
Yeah, I'm with you, Dave. I would understand him wanting to get a deal done and the pressure to get a deal done, and I think that it will happen next summer. So that's kind of where I'm at right now.
Yeah, I don't see in any way, shape, or form. Now, look, obviously, if he gets injured or something along those lines, that could change how you do things, because you're waiting for him to come off of an injury or something like that. That's an injury is the only way I don't see them getting a deal done with Watt by the start of the 2021 season.
Yeah, so you're saying next summer is the Castro and Watt?
Yes, I think that's the best way to look at it.
Okay, good deal.
Would you agree?
Yeah, I mean, you're mapping this out more than I am, so I'm kind of following your lead. But yeah, that sounds about right to me.
Okay, and let's see if we got anything else left in here.
It's like 5 refs are opting out of 2020, including Tony Sterator.
Huh? He's probably done anyway, wouldn't you think? Close. You're talking Tony, not Gene.
Tony,
right?
yeah, this isn't Gene. This is, I guess, his brother or something. But just a heads up there, because that's something to consider. Coaches and refs are obviously vulnerable to the virus as well.
All right, I think we got through most of these questions here. Let's see. And we're on back into some for Dr. Mel here, but we got those answered. All right. In the meantime, until I guess Tuesday or Monday night, tell people what we do on Monday night.
Yeah, we have our Monday night live stream, Dave and I, 7 to 8 p.m. Eastern time over on my YouTube channel. You can just search my name, Kozora, and find my channel, subscribe to it, and get notified for the live stream. Dave and I answering your questions for an hour every Monday over on YouTube. Been a lot of fun. Had some great turnout over on YouTube, some really good questions. So definitely been happy with the support there.
All right. In the meantime, you can follow me on Twitter at Steelers Depot. Follow Alex on Twitter at Alex_Kozora. Follow the show at Terrible Podcast. Email the show, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. If you like what we do and you want to donate to the cause, go to SteelersDepot.com and hit the donate button, please. Upper right navigational bar. And that'll take you to a secure way to donate some money. Also, if you'd like an ad-free version of the site, for one full calendar year from the time that you sign up, for $25 for one full calendar year, you get an ad-free version of SteelersDepot.com. And to get that, you go to SteelersDepot.com, hit the ad-free button in the navigational bar, and that'll take you to the sign-up page, and it should be kind of self-explanatory there. You create a username and a password and all like that. But we still have a lot of people taking advantage of that as well, too. So Alex and I will be back with you, as he said, on the YouTube live stream Monday night, and we'll be back podcasting again next Tuesday. Have a great weekend, everybody. And as always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.